Welcome, everyone. We will try to make it brief so that you can freely go into the lunch break. Today, I am joined by these amazing entrepreneurs for our Resilience in Entrepreneurship panel. Nektarios, Liolios, who's the founder of Radish. Jevan, Nagarajah, who's founder of Better Dairy. And Akin, Babayigit, founder of Tech.eu Studios. So thanks for joining us in this panel today. It is Mental Health Awareness Week this week, globally, till Sunday. So I will encourage each and all of you to really do a bit of a well-being check on how we are doing these days, especially this week. That will be really great for all of you. And we are here in this conference where we have a lot of investors and entrepreneurs, and we really praise the fact that this is all very glorious journey and that we are all hustlers and high achievers. But then there are also the parts of lows and downs of this journey. So I would love to start with your own personal entrepreneurial journeys. How did you end up here? Why are you doing what you're doing? So Nektarios, I would love to start with you.
So I will probably need about an hour.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nektarios. I spent most of my life in corporate and fell into entrepreneurship. It took me about 2 years until I was comfortable to actually call myself a founder. When I co-founded an accelerator called Startup Bootcamp FinTech that launched in 2014, did this for 5 years, and since then I've founded a bunch of other things, including my latest thing, which is a lending as a service for underserved communities platform in the UK, so financial inclusion in the UK. But one of the things I started in 2019 was a platform called the Future Farm, which advocates for mental health in entrepreneurship because of the work that we did as accelerator operators, because I realized that we were actually part of the problem and I wanted to be part of the solution.
Thank you. Yeah, Jevan.
So I had quite a winding journey. I think the first time I felt like I really actually wanted to go and build a business was when I was about 14. When I was 12, I used to trade Pokemon cards, and that gave me a bit of a, I guess, inspiration and want to go out there and build companies. After that, I went off to university, I did a degree in math, I became an investment banker, and that wasn't really for me. I didn't find it super fulfilling. And I decided to quit my job and leave, and that's where I was able to tap into that want to build business. And for the last sort of 10 years or so, I've been building and scaling tech companies. The last 5 years of which I've been building out Better Dairy. We're using biotech to make molecularly identical dairy products without using any animals.
Thank you. Okay.
I've been in the entrepreneurial journey. So we started Tech.eu Studios about 8 years ago. We've grown nicely since then. Before that, I did all sorts of corporate jobs. Worked at McKinsey, which I absolutely hated. Worked at Facebook, which was fun. Then got horrible towards the end. And then worked at Activision Blizzard, which was also fun. But towards the end of my time at those corporate careers, I always felt like I couldn't bear the thought of going to the office anymore. I always had this entrepreneurial itch, and someone told me, like, starting a company is statistically a stupid decision. You should only do it if that's the only thing you can think of doing, and for me that was the only thing I could think of doing. So I started Tech.eu Studios, then Luna Labs, and so that was how I got into it.
Thank you. Great. I'm really keen to learn more about your personal resilience strategies. So what do you specifically do practically so that you could share it with the audience as well that helps you to bounce back from any adversity that you face? I mean, you can take 10 minutes if you like. I know that you could share a lot, but
Maybe if it's okay, I can take a little bit of... So I will speak with my Future Farm hat on because we've worked with literally hundreds of founders in the last 5 years. Trying to understand their mental health journey. And we have a podcast where we invite people to be very vulnerable. It's called Naked for a reason. And the idea is practically sit down with people in a safe space and say, tell us about how you hit rock bottom. What were the signals you ignored when you look back? And what are you doing now to get better? So in order to be able to talk about the practices and the techniques you apply to be better, you kind of need to acknowledge that the only way you can do this is if you have an awareness about where you are.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, when we go into this, we just don't look at that. It's the first thing we ignore. Oh, I'm feeling a bit weird, I'm feeling a bit tired, it's part of the hustle. In my Startup Bootcamp days, there was I don't use Facebook anymore, but I like it for the memories. And I posted once, this week, I'm doing cities with a letter that start with the letter M, Mexico City, Mumbai, Melbourne. Because we had programs in all these 3 places, and I literally did this in 10 days. And I thought it was cool. And people would say, are you okay? And it's like, yeah, I live on British Airways, I sleep on British Airways. And then when you kind of come out of this and you're completely burnt out and you don't really know how to structure your day and you know that your body is falling apart and you look around and you lost all your social contacts and your partner doesn't really like you anymore, then you realize that maybe I should have listened earlier. So what am I doing? I love therapy. I had therapy throughout my life. I use therapy as hygiene. It's like brushing my teeth. I talk to my therapist about everything. It leads to introspection, it leads to understanding certain things, the causes for certain things, and it allows me, because I'm a conversational person, to find ways to address things that we've identified as being things. I'm not a very physical exercise type person, probably obvious, but at the same time I realize that when I do certain things that it really help me, so physical activities help. And for me, I figured out I'm never going to be the gym bunny. I'm not going to be one who runs kilometers and miles. So I do yoga, and I love going for long walks. Sometimes doing calls just to keep moving, sometimes not. But the key thing for me is also my connections. So having people I talk to about certain things matters enormously. And I have a partner who's supportive, and that also makes a difference. But it took a long time to be able to articulate my needs, and that's part of the work that's gone into this. So I can say now that I know what my body needs. Just a final thing, all that said, about 9 months ago, I had a moment where I was standing in a Waitrose in Canary Wharf crying. Because with all this in your head, you still fall into the same traps, because there's this opportunity and this speaking engagement and this thing to do, and then there's the VC that you still need to convince. And I was back to the level of my battery being at 0, and I hadn't really acknowledged that. And by the way, I was crying because I didn't find the exit of the supermarket that I'd been to about 100 times in the last few years. So there you go.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this, Jevan.
Yeah, I suppose, look, life can be stressful. Building a company can also be stressful. I think I echo quite a bit of that. I mean, for me, physical exercise is really something that really helps me to get my mindset in the right place, to kind of just take stress and dissipate it. I think when you're building a company, you know, sometimes you can kind of get so lost into it that you don't take care of yourself. You don't actually invest the time and the effort and the energy into things like physical health. I've actually just got a PT over the last couple of months and really started doubling down on that again. And I can already feel that, you know, my ability to deal with challenges, my ability to kind of manage stress levels has tremendously increased. So for me, physical activity is one thing. I would say another thing is probably focusing on the things that you can control, right? You can't control everything. I think you need resilience, you need to overcome things, but if you're fighting a battle that you can't win or something that you can't control, you're spending a lot of energy and time on things that are just not going to move by that energy and time. So I think focusing on things you can control is also another key thing. And then the last thing I would say is probably, you know, be kind to yourself, right? I mean, I see it as part of the entrepreneurial journey of being resilient, right? Like anyone can sort of raise funds in a really, really hyped market. When the markets are tough or when, you know, you have issues in your company, that's when you really need to muster the entrepreneurial spirit and build that backbone. And so I think that combined with being kind to yourself also helps me.
For me personally, I think you have to have a support network. You have to have a lighthouse in your life. So, you know, we were talking backstage about, you know, a company that I invested in, the founder is very religious. And for him, his faith is the lighthouse. So, you know, he's so religious that, you know, he doesn't work on Saturdays, for instance. And, you know, that keeps him grounded. For me, my lighthouse has always been my wife, and, you know, she's, you know, in terms of what keeps me grounded, it's number 1, 2, 3, wife and kids. But it could be anything. It could be a group of friends. It could be a hobby you have. It could be whatever. So that's kind of what keeps me grounded. The thing that to not do, and I think this is a trap I even today fall into, it's very hard to not do, is to constantly compare yourself to other people. And I feel like if I look at the people that are happiest around me and that are most mentally stable, etc., they somehow are not bothered by the comparison. It's human nature to compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
But when we started the company, my source of unhappiness wasn't my day-to-day, it wasn't the stress of the work, it was the unknown as to what will I be, because the people I went to business school with were all making lots of money and I was just not making any money at all. So if you can find a way to not compare yourself constantly with other people around you, I think you'll just be happier, not just in entrepreneurship, in anything you do in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it okay if I throw some numbers into the room just to contextualize this?
Yeah, of course.
So mental health in entrepreneurship is a criminally under-researched subject.
Yeah.
There's been one study out there by Dr. Michael Friedman that he did about 10 years ago, and since then there's only been little pockets, but nothing really global. But the interesting things coming out of that is, as an entrepreneur, you're twice more likely to experience suicidal ideation. You're twice more likely to engage in substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, and you're 3 times more likely to experience anxiety and depression. And then COVID happened, and that particular bit went up quite dramatically. In parallel, there's a wonderful woman called Ute, who is a researcher at King's College, who did a study, and she put this into this wonderful context just to kind of summarize or give a different perspective of what you just said. As an entrepreneur, the thing that makes you different from the general population is that you can be stressed and fulfilled at the same time. Mm-hmm. And in an employee situation, the moment you get stressed, your fulfillment starts dropping, and then you usually pick a battle. But we have this intrinsic motivation to build. I can't do anything else. I can't be employed, right? That allows us to keep going on both sides, and little by little, you start neglecting everything else. That's where you start neglecting your physical, your mental health, your social networks, etc. And that, in the end, is a killer, because stress is proven just to shorten your lifespan. So this is maybe also interesting just to throw in the room when we talk about all these things, that some of it is genetic, some of it is contextual. You're much more likely to experience mental health manifestations as an entrepreneur if there has been mental health issues in your family. That's another thing from Michael Freeman's study. But also the subject of neurodiversity and the interplay between being neurodiverse. Your likelihood to become an entrepreneur is higher, but at the same time, you're more likely to experience manifestations like bipolar disorder, ADHD, etc.
Depression, yeah. Yeah, thanks for adding these up. Actually, this is why I ended up founding Founder Being, which refers to founder well-being. But I also named it Founder Being because it's like human being, but founders are a special breed, like, human being, but they're founder beings, that they have all these, you get satisfied by stress, but this drives you, but this also burns you out in the long term. So it's very complex structure that comes with a lot of complex traumas or mental conditions that majority of the entrepreneurs are not really aware. So this is really important that, running panels like that and make everybody really aware of the importance of this, because at the end of the day, even if you have, a unicorn, or if you did the best thing in the world that you're satisfied, we were just discussing this backstage as well, at the end of the day, you may be just like sitting there with this whole emptiness inside that's just bringing you back to where you started. So it's really crucial that we take care of our mental well-being as much as we do take care of our businesses and our families and everybody else around us. I would like to ask, actually, do any of you have any diagnosis of like ADHD or any other condition? As you said that you're into therapy, I know, and maybe you as well. Do you have any?
I am certain I have ADHD, but it's undiagnosed.
Not diagnosed, so, okay. Are you interested in getting any diagnosis, or you're just like, I'm fine like this?
I started kind of being more cognizant of this after I had kids. So, before that, it's just like, growing up in Turkey, you're just kind of, it's just...
You get on with it.
There's no...
get on with life. Okay.
But yeah, once I started seeing certain pattern of behavior in my kids, and then actually having it be described as, well, maybe that person has ADHD, is like, well, maybe I have ADHD as well. But I think actually importantly, being aware that, this is a thing that is shared across multiple founders is actually a big part of the or addressing the problem. Because, I was aware that other founders go through this, but not all founders are aware that, you're more susceptible to, more fragile mental health. So, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were close to get diagnosed, but not yet.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been diagnosed. I do online tests every now and then, and it tells me I have all kinds of different things depending on how I'm feeling when I do it. But I do actually use a therapist as well, and I think that gives you the opportunity to explore a lot of things within yourself. We're all shaped by our individual journeys. We have biases. You know, it's helped me to explore that and bring that into my understanding of how to be a good founder. So.
Since we started talking, since we started running out of time, I kind of feel like I need to get on my soapbox for a moment, if you allow me, because we talk a little bit about the manifestations and the causes, etc., etc. One of the things we've learned by talking to all these people across different business profiles, ages, business models, etc., is that the real stresses usually come in when the company raises VC money. So for a lot of VC-backed founders, mental health becomes an even worse journey when you have a VC breathing down your neck who has no empathy and no understanding. And we thought, since we wanted with the Future Farm to be part of the solution, let's start talking to the ecosystem. And Jesus, we had people who said straight to our face, I genuinely don't care. This is 2019, this was pre-pandemic. And even now, when you talk to VCs about just acknowledging that they may play a role in this, you get a lot of pushback. There's a slow movement towards saying, okay, maybe we should be doing something, but VCs being quite simple-minded animals, also just want a solution that you hand it to them and then they just go, okay, we've ticked the box, we're looking after mental health. But I think it's important to acknowledge that if you're working with somebody who has a big say in the way you run your business, who have no recognition that you may actually need a different type of support in certain phases of building the business, that's really not helping.
Yeah.
And the problem is that some VCs vocally capitalize on the fact that if you have somebody who has ADHD or bipolar, you know that they will have phases where they will be ultra productive and ultra successful, but you just don't care about what happens afterwards, and that's really not a good thing.
Yeah.
May I just build on that? I mean, I think choice of investor is super important. Obviously, you only have a limited amount of information, so finding the right investors to work with obviously does help. But I would also say, you know, finding the right co-founder, that also is very important. If you have a co-founder and you can't find a way to work together, that obviously creates a lot more challenges as well. And even beyond that, I mean, even early stage employees, I think for the first couple of employees, they have such a big impact on things. Either you need to be very good at finding the right people and exiting the wrong people, but I think you need to make some good choices on a couple of these sort of key things. And if they aren't working, you need to iterate them, because longer term, they just have the propensity to build up and create larger and larger frictions and challenges alongside just building a successful business.
Yeah.
Actually, just building on that, it's really important to be cognizant of the hustle porn that is so pervasive in today's society as well. Like, it's so easy to get caught up on it and say, oh, you know, like in an era where you know, certain types of personalities are held up as like examples of what to be like, and when those personalities are themselves obviously suffering from lots of mental health problems. You know, just know that, you know, the glorification of this hustle mentality, etc., you know, looks fun and gay, you know, from the outside. But inside, what only matters at the end of the day is your own well-being. And, you know, it's easier said than done, because, you know, while you're in it and when you have investors, you know, you're accountable as to how you conduct yourself. But I genuinely struggle a lot with that. As an ecosystem, we are perpetuating this so much, you know, like because of the heroes that we have, etc., in the world are all people that actually need a lot of help. And
but they deny as well. Like Elon Musk. Like, I don't know if you've seen the tweet that Elon Musk said, but it was like, you know, he wanted them to put on his grave out that he's never taken any therapy. So we have these role models in the industry that, you know, okay, you know, nobody should really care about well-being or mental wellness, but more about the success and $1 million that you raise. So
I think I'll just say, for every hero like that, there are probably thousands of people that tried to be that hero and emulate that hero, but ended up in a horrible situation. So, you know, we tend to glorify people that succeed, and we completely ignore people that failed, And to me, it's much more important that you're cognizant and you take care of yourself because no one else is going to take care of you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we have to wrap it up, but before we wrap it up, I would love to say that mentally sick people, tech founders, cannot really build mentally well societies. So this is why I definitely agree that it's in the entire ecosystem, it's our role to really make this a priority as well, so that we are living in a safer world and like more better and more balanced societies rather than just the success stories, etc. So thank you so much for joining. I think we can just keep going for hours about this topic. Thank you so much for saving your time and joining us as well. So hope to see you during the lunch break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.